Zygmunt Lozinski, Senior Technical Staff Member and Quantum Ambassador at IBM Research, co-founder of the GSMA Post-Quantum Telecom Networks Task Force, where he promotes the adoption of post-quantum cryptography on a global scale. With a degree in physics from Imperial College London, Zygmunt has built a solid career in emerging technologies and digital security. As a global leader at IBM, he is responsible for developing solutions that protect networks against quantum threats, working with telecommunications companies and international organizations to ensure digital security in the post-quantum era. A reference in quantum security and digital innovation, Zygmunt is a key figure in protecting the digital ecosystems of the future.
All right, day number 3. Welcome to Barcelona. And I keep bleeding blue this week. And we keep having IBMers share with us technology strategies from different portions. So how lucky me that we keep the hot topics and the buzzwords coming. And now the difficulty level just increased just now. So stay tuned as Zig shares with me a little bit about quantum computing from IBM. Zig, welcome.
Thank you.
How has the show been for you?
Busy. We've had
Busy.
seminars. We've been working on a couple of quantum seminars with the GSMA.
Okay.
The first one on Monday was a little bit embarrassing because it was standing room only and about 3 times the room capacity. And fortunately, none of the fire marshals spotted this. But that was very, very good.
We might edit this part. Don't get him into trouble next year. He's just saying he needs a bigger room, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we're kind of reminding him. Go.
And then yesterday we had a seminar looking at quantum safe in telecoms, and we had about 200 people. And again, sadly, there was a queue at the door, and for everybody who didn't make it, I'm very sorry they couldn't get in. However, it is all being recorded by the GSMA, so they can watch it later if they didn't make it.
Okay, so other than feeling like they really need to watch it later than they didn't make it, give us the spoiler for what you shared a bit, and maybe start by breaking down what the heck is quantum.
Okay,
go.
So quantum computers are a new type of computer that will solve problems we could not solve any other way. And the sorts of problems that they will solve will be things like modeling the insides of an electric vehicle battery to make them more efficient, or looking at how a drug interacts with part of your body, or looking at how the plastic in the wing of a modern composite aircraft behaves and corrodes over time. So those are really important. Optimizing the way we make fertilizer. There's my son. That could change the world's carbon emissions by a couple of percent. Just that one problem. So they solve problems in certain very specialized areas, which have great potential, and we can't solve them any other way. So that's why there's so much interest in quantum computing in America, China, in Europe. Everyone's really interested. It's very exciting. There's just one little problem.
Okay.
The other thing that a quantum computer, it turns out, can do once we have large-scale systems is break the security of the internet and the mobile network.
Yeah. And we will get into that. Pretty much, you're telling us that we spend all this money in security, cybersecurity, tokenization, encryption, but now the keys are just no longer even keys. You can walk through walls, and off we go.
Yeah. So we need to figure out how we're going to fix that. And that's okay. For the last 10 years, there's been a program underway to develop new encryption that's safe against both quantum computers and classical computers. And last August, an event in the White House, those standards were made available. And so we're now facing the 10-year migration process of getting from the way we secure your bank card, the way we secure your mobile phone, the way your electronic commerce is secured. We're going to have to update all those systems over the coming decade. And of course, the reason we're here in Barcelona is because, of course, the world's mobile networks are part of what everybody uses for every online transaction. We've got to secure 8 billion devices, 1,000 networks. And so IBM, Vodafone, the GSMA are all working together on how we do that and building a plan for us to secure the world's mobile networks over the coming years.
And we will get to that. So a couple debunks. Quantum.
Quantum.
Is it really big? Is a computer really big? Is it really expensive?
Okay.
And does it use a lot of energy?
Okay. So if you come to the IBM office in London, or
when I come to the
when
IBM
you have an
office in
invitation,
London to
right?
come see this live through my eyes. Okay, let's go. You know, when people wanted to figure out where cloud was and we had to like take people to data centers, I was one of the first ones taking UN officials and regulators to see the physical thing.
Right.
So go.
So if we go into
Ooh, there's a picture he's holding out.
Yeah. So that's a picture of one of my quantum computers. They're beautiful.
It looks pretty cool, guys. It looks pretty cool.
We'll get you a picture.
Pretty cool. We'll get a cool picture on screen.
Picture. Right. So they're about the size of this one's about the size of a small room.
Okay.
And the reason for that is you want to keep the quantum computer itself has to be really cold.
All right.
Colder than outer space.
Yikes. That seems like a place I don't really want to be. So you need a room in a house or somewhere. It doesn't seem really practical, but okay.
But
really cool.
No, you can put these. So we have one in the cafeteria of the Cleveland Clinic in the United States.
All right. Another place I have to go visit.
And so you can go and have your coffee, and the quantum computer is in the center of the room.
Huh.
Inside, it's really cold. Outside, it just works.
All right. And the energy bill?
There's a fun fact, which is that a quantum computer or a quantum computation takes no energy, but you do have to keep the machine cold, and you do actually have to be able to read and write information from it. So, it takes a few tens of kilowatts. It is not a massive. You don't need your own power station. Now,
all right,
this is
that's better.
Yep.
Okay.
This is not the sort of technology that today we'd expect you to have. You're not going to have a quantum computer in your phone or in your home anytime soon. They're the sorts of things that you will have on the cloud or operated by national research centers. So if you think about the Cleveland Clinic, a massive healthcare research center, Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York, again, major education center, Riken in Tokyo, major education, Fraunhofer in Germany, again, national research centers. These will contribute to national science programs rather than being something that you or I have in our pocket. And we'll integrate them with other computers. That's how this will work.
Okay. And as you're looking at this working, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty that comes from saying, hey, the current security walls and doors that I spend gajillions of dollars on are no longer going to work. But you said that there's some hope. And I heard hope in new forms of cryptography.
Yes.
I've heard hope in different ways of thinking of architecture. So can you maybe double down a little bit on that, as everybody tends to panic when we don't know?
We don't need to panic about the transition to quantum safe cryptography. What we need to do is to plan. We need to understand where we use cryptography. So why does cryptography matter? Well, you want to know that your WhatsApp or Signal messages are not going to be read by somebody who you don't.
You would hope.
You would hope.
Today you live in a world of hope, right?
And the way we do that is we encrypt the message. So that's one use of cryptography. You want to know that your medical records are private, so we encrypt those messages to keep them, that data to keep it secure. But we also use encryption when you make a payment with a payment card or with your phone. We encrypt that message so that you are secure, that you can't change the amount, that the bank can't change the amount, and so that it's secure end to end. And we talk about non-repudiation. And finally, we sign digitally important documents like the software that goes into your phone, so a bad person can't hack the software. And we sign things like business records, so that who owns a piece of property, we can tell that it has not been modified. So it's all of those areas that encryption matters to. And now what we need to do is discover where we have all the applications that do that, and over time update them all. So the boring answer is we need to take an inventory, build a plan, and update systems one after the other. And one of the things that IBM, Vodafone, the GSMA have been doing is trying to map out that for telco. We don't want anybody panicking. We need people building boring plans and then executing.
And part of these boring plans is allowing people to innovate within boundaries of what we can do safely, ethically. And that's what standards are all about. Other than navigating the word soup that I like to call it, of the many, many words and acronyms that we find to describe. I know you're very active in this world, Zig. So could you tell us a little bit about the work in standards here and the work that you're doing with the GSMA?
Yeah. So if we think about 5G, you just want to go and get your iPhone, switch it on and have it work. That's great. Underneath them, there are perhaps 500 technical standards that describe different parts of how the SIM manages security, how the phone connects to the network, how you authenticate. All those things are covered by detailed technical standards created by 3GPP. And so one of the things that has to happen over the coming years is that those standards all need to be updated. So where they include cryptography, that gets updated and managed. So that's one of the GSMA is working with 3GPP in order to build a roadmap for that to happen. Great. And then, of course, we need the vendors who build the products to actually implement those. But one of the things we're doing in advance of that, we've got operators like Telefonica, like Vodafone, we've got vendors like Idemia, all modeling, actually demonstrating the use cases that we're going to have to secure. So the thing we did earlier this week was we had a showcase with different operators and vendors showing examples of how to make things secure, so that we're getting early experience of, okay, this is how we secure this little bit of the Internet of Things. That's how we secure the link between the base station, the radio tower that you see, and the rest of the network. And then all of that information is being shared. Public, you can go and read it if you're interested. The key point, though, is we're building that experience base. We're sharing it among the industry so that everybody knows, okay, this is how we will secure each piece of the puzzle. And Monday, Vodafone did an interesting announcement with IBM saying, and here's how we're going to secure a certain set of business services. So all of these pieces are coming together. There won't be a single day. It'll be, we'll build out components over time, but gradually we will make the network quantum safe.
And let's talk about quantum safe, because this is one of the reasons why you were here. And I'll go back to this notion of safety and rewriting standards. Before rewriting standards, you have been in the industry for a long time and understanding the part that we actually need to rethink. Connectivity of data, ownership, boundaries. Does quantum give us an opportunity to rethink that before the standard is set? Where are we in that journey?
Okay. It's a good question. I actually have to think about it. Right. So quantum safe itself doesn't change any of that. It is the same, providing we implement the encryption correctly, you get the same guarantees you have today, that your messages are secure, that your healthcare data is secure, that your banking transactions haven't been intercepted or faked. And so it doesn't change that. What it means is that in future, we are safe against a new risk. So what we're really doing is managing risk. And the standards community sit behind the scenes, work typically until about 10 o'clock most nights in conference rooms that you never see, making sure that everybody agrees on how we do that. So we've got the cryptographic standards, which were done by NIST. We've got the internet standards done by the IETF, and we have the telco stuff done by 3GPP, and they all work together.
And does it give you an opportunity when you talk about the, ABCs of quantum here, and you share the opportunity of this collective intelligence coming together, of knowing how things are inherently either integrated or impact one another for health, for safety, for things that are a lot more than just a cool new phone that we're going to launch. There is a hero story that comes out of this fear that quantum computing could change everything and we can no longer be safe. when you were here sharing about quantum safe, what were the stories told for the ones that didn't hear us?
Okay. So one example we were looking at, and this was on Monday, was we've got smart meters around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do we make sure that every country is deploying smart meters? How do we ensure that those smart meters are safe in the future, that we can, so that was one of the examples that was used.
How do we make sure that they're safe in the future?
So the simple answer.
And this is, we're talking like, I don't know about you, but I remember watching the Jetsons and thinking everything was going to be smart and great and intelligent. But I didn't realize until not too many years ago, the power of identity when it comes to authentication and security. This is one that is ethical, anthropological, social, one that is much more than just the size of the computer you have.
So the way that works is you need to be able to make a smart meter quantum safe, you need to be able to update the software in it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to authenticate that that software is coming from somebody that you know and trust. Check the signature. That's actually what you do to authenticate software. But we need that those meters are over-the-air updatable, because if you can't afford a truck roll to every one of 5 million homes to replace. To do a software update, you just can't send somebody around to do that with a van. Mm-hmm. Although I'm sure our friend at the front would be quite happy to drive around Spain for the following. That won't work, right? So
correct.
So that was one example. How do we secure smart meters? Well, the way we do it is by doing that. Yeah. A second story was to ensure that the security of the networks, perhaps less visible to most people, but how do we ensure that inside the network, as you drive around, you see the cell towers around you, those are connected to data centers that have the rest of the network in them. How do we ensure the security between those base stations and so again, different groups of Vodafone, Huawei had both done work showing how you do that, and everybody could then see, okay, that's what I have to do. And then our friends from Telefonica were talking about how they might create business services. So one of the challenges we've got, large firms, the major banks, the major telcos, government, have people that think about security all the time.
Yep, they do. They've been sitting, some of them, right here in this very seat.
But a small firm, a mom and pop shop, small and medium businesses, they don't have that.
Of course they don't.
They rely on the things that they buy or consume being designed by people who've thought about the risks that they face.
And have the responsibilities to do so.
Yeah. And so you begin to see firms like Telefonica and Vodafone saying, okay, we will ensure that the networks that we provide to those firms are safe by design. We will embed quantum safe into our networks. We will ensure that the components you need are already part of the network. And so those are one of the things that we're going to see happen over the next couple of years. And we've seen announcements from both of them. So
getting the message, quantum to the mass market.
Getting quantum safe to the mass market. Yeah. Through large providers, the cloud providers, people like Apple have already made their phones quantum safe. It'll be those firms. So if you're an ordinary person, if you're a small business owner, you don't really need to worry, because the people who provide the world's infrastructure, and that's why we're here this week, the people who build the world's infrastructure are worrying about this, because we can see it's our responsibility. And so we will do what it takes to ensure that your life is boring going on. You can just doing the stuff you do, and you don't have to worry about this as a threat. It's not going to affect the average person, because we will design it so that it doesn't.
I sure hope so. And I will keep sitting people right next to my chairs, asking them how they're designing these things, because I think we failed society, humanity in many ways when we look at even the boundaries that we've put in the digital world that we live in. So the responsibility and the opportunity comes with the intelligence, with how we harness this technology for good. What have you been excited to learn here, Zig, while you've been doing these announcements and bringing, what has been work of 10 years to life?
Oh, so actually some of the cool things we've noticed here is there were Spain has got a national quantum program.
Yeah.
And actually, we saw the king and one of the ministers here, talking about some of the things that they're doing. Spain's building 3 quantum computing centers. That's cool. And I think they made some announcements.
Comparatively, for people that don't follow that,
Yeah.
what are the countries that have a lot of computing?
So the major the countries with a lot of work on quantum computing: the United States, China, the United Kingdom, Germany, and now Spain. I mean, and it was really nice to see. And so there's going to be quantum computing center. There's one in the Basque region, Idike Basque. I think there'll be one in Barcelona, and I'm not sure where the third one will be. But it's it's good to see that. And of course, one of the things that does, it gives kids coming out of university an opportunity to work in a cutting edge area, because you've got someone's put the technology in place, and the single most valuable commodity of those programs is a group of people who know how to use those systems to do cool stuff, whether it be pharmaceutical design, new materials, understanding how we can improve batteries, things like that. That's the real value. But the fact that you've got national programs means that there will be a place for that generation to come along and do really good stuff.
And I think that usually starts to signal to what we've seen, the regulatory landscape becoming more firm. Then investors find a more comfortable, less risky place to, set up boundaries and let entrepreneurs do what they do best, which is innovate in the private market. But how far are we from the reality? You've seen these waves of technology throughout your careers. Like we're still talking, we're still counting on hands here, the number of countries with this capacity. And I know a huge mission of IBM and IBM Research is to spread this globally without each country having to have their own quantum center. But, how far are we from reality globally?
Okay. So we've been working on this problem now for over a decade. And we've now got hundreds of firms that are part of our universities, research centers, businesses, pharmaceutical firms, who are all part of our quantum network, who are using those quantum systems for applications they consider valuable. Okay. Now, we're still at the research phase. Let's be clear. Within the next couple of years, we believe we'll see the first examples of quantum applications that generating value that could never be done on any classical system. Okay. And we have a roadmap out to 2033 that shows how we will improve those systems over time. And IBM's not either. There are other firms also doing this. You've got Google, you've got IonQ, you've got Quantinuum. So there's a set of organizations all working on this, and we all have the same objective. We all want there to be, we know there are problems that we can solve with these systems that have real value for people. We want there to be systems in place. We want there to be people who know how to use them. And right now, I'd say for early adopters, this is the time to think about. So we've got banks, for example. They're thinking.
So how does a bank, this is a question that every CEO of every major bank is getting asked by either a journalist, person from their board, or potentially a C-suite from their team asking, what are you doing about quantum?
Right. So quantum computers will never replace classical computers. They augment them. But there are certain problems that they're very good at. And one of those is in finance. It's in the optimization of, for example, a basket of securities where you have your investment portfolio and you want to understand the risk in that portfolio so you can manage that. So managing that risk is something that a quantum computer can help you do, both for an individual.
So the quantum computer is going to be the quantum treasurer.
It's not. Well, yes.
Okay.
Actually, that's not a bad way of thinking about it. For either a
all right,
bank
2 for 1. Not a bad question. Not a bad way to think about it. I'm winning today. Okay, all right.
And for but both for a bank and for a central bank, because you also want to manage risk for a country as a whole. You want to
correct. It's one of their main mandates of sovereignty.
Exactly. So quantum computers potentially help us manage risk. Another thing that you can do.
And is it just again, the capacity of computing that many data points and that many connections?
It's because the particular algorithm that you use to manage risk can be run very efficiently on a quantum computer. That the real
So it's the efficiency of the
yes,
algorithm.
The quantum computers. The real difference of a quantum computer and a classical computer is that for the problems that a quantum computer can solve, the difference in capability is almost immeasurable. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
There's a fun example we use. Let's take coffee.
All right.
Take a caffeine molecule.
Cool.
Which isn't actually very complicated.
We'll find a cool way of making this visual. All right.
Yeah. We'll send you a picture of a caffeine molecule if you want.
Sure, we'll take it.
And if you actually think about it, you count the number of electrons and the number of electron vacancies, and you think about how many states are involved. It's 160 of the things, so 2 to the power 160, which is 10 to the power 48, which is, if you wanted to try and build a computer to do that, 10% of the Earth's mass. That's a bit of a problem because you probably don't want your home and a Fairport. No, that wouldn't work. However, a quantum
Not
computer...
convinced.
Not convinced. A quantum computer could do that.
This business did not work out.
Quantum computer to do that would be much more achievable. 160 qubits.
160.
Yeah, and to put that in context, we're currently 100. That's the difference, right?
All right.
When we talk about exponential complexity,
now you quantify for me. I'm not like
10% of the Earth or 160 qubits, right? And that will be achievable within the decade.
Within a decade.
So those problems are why we use quantum computers, because if you've got a problem that it fits on, the ability for it to solve that problem is so much greater than you can ever do any other way. Turns out, as I say, derivatives and evaluating risk is one. Another one is looking at fraud. So if you think about it, banks care about payment fraud. Banks care about anomalous financial transactions for anti-money laundering.
Of course.
Right? So if you can build a machine learning kernel to identify those things, and you can improve its quality, actually to a bank risk manager and to the regulators who care about AML, okay, that's worth it. We think we can get, and there are published research papers in this area from people like HSBC, maybe 6 to 8% improvement. We can use a quantum computer to build the machine learning kernel, and we then run that on a classical system. And okay, 6 to 8% for fraud or anti-money laundering that's a measure.
That is measurement.
You can measure that. And the numbers and the numbers are quite significant.
And when we're talking about what is the societal impact of money laundering and what is the societal impact of fraud, smishing, fraud, and when we talk about the creativity that humanity has, and how does quantum intake or allow a bank to deal with just the asymmetry of even the technology stacks that exist in fraud today? Because we all know criminals do not do POCs,
Yes.
they don't follow regulatory rules, and they do not wait a decade.
No. So we believe that the way people will actually use quantum technology is they will combine their classical systems with quantum systems. They'll, if you like, access a quantum computer on a cloud and integrate that into the workflow that's doing whatever the classical workflow that they already have. So in the same way that you use GPUs to give you fancier graphics or TPUs to give you better machine learning, you'll use quantum computers as QPUs, if you like, integrated into...
And will you buy it like you buy SaaS, like you buy cloud?
You will buy them
or
like
will
SaaS.
You buy...
I mean, the model, as I say, quantum computers tend to require some care and feeding, so they typically run in data centers rather in normal environments. Cleveland Clinic's an interesting exception there. But for the most part, it's easier for most firms if they just consume them on the cloud. And then...
Of course, they spent gajillions of dollars and still are in the transformation in some countries of even, you looked at an example like HSBC. I've had the fortune to work with HSBC globally. It's a huge challenge for the CIOs when you're talking of countries like you look at MENAT region as an example. Somebody's operating in Turkey and somebody's operating in the DIFC. They're completely different regulatory environments. So just what do I need to do if I'm a company or a CEO of a bank to get quantum computing readiness? If you're talking about You say it sounds really easy. I just augment my systems. I decide what workflows. Okay. So maybe part of my data transformation project, I know what my workflows are. They've maybe been hopefully mapped out. I've broken some silos. My data is maybe ready. What do I need to do to get quantum computer ready? Is there a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Build a core team, build a small team, and give them the mission of understanding the current state of quantum technology and finding a project that they can apply it in the bank. The people we have seen be successful all taken that approach.
Taking a traditional innovation approach that we've seen with like saying, okay, I'm going to have an innovation team.
Yep.
I'm going to appoint them some business owners inside of the bank. I'm going to find an ROI and off I go.
Yep. And
fraud being such an obvious one. And one that even allows you to do probably really interesting things, I would assume, with data collaboration. Because when you talk about privacy and data loss, when it is about fraud or it is about anti-money laundering or protection, there's different things you can do with the data.
Yes, as I say, all the people we've seen who have been successful have basically created a small team with
and empower them,
support from the board, and then go away and work on a program. Take an agile approach. First thing you have to do is build capability, make sure that you have the skills that you need, and then start picking problems. Doesn't matter. Fail fast, try them out, work with go and find a partner who can help you with quantum technology. You've got IBM, you've got Google, you've got various of the small startups. Go work with one of them and build that team. And if you're a bank, you've got the quants. There are a lot of people ready who have the technical background to be able to learn how these systems work. You program quantum computers in Python these days, right?
Yeah.
So it's fairly common as a language in financial services. So again, build that team and use them to develop capability in your firm. I mean, one of the things I've spent a lot of my time doing is just giving the overview of quantum technology to companies, to universities, to firms that are trying to work out where they should be on this journey, to governments as well, and help them understand how to do this, what the options they have are, and that's important because this is not something to be scared of. It is an emerging technology, but it's one that is within the grasp of certainly any innovative company.
And apparently there's a path, so they can come talk to you or IBM and find where they are in this journey and maybe what is this quantum readiness. You touched on a topic that I want to close us off with around leadership and diversity.
Yes.
And I think a lot of banks, financial institutions, retail companies have struggled to beat the large giants of technology when it comes to talent. When it comes to talent attraction, retention, we've seen huge layoffs in the financial services market. Warren Buffett is out there sitting on a pile of cash betting a recession. So who knows? How does a firm out there and what kind of skills, you touched a bit upon Python, but what kind of skills are required in this SWAT, amazing superstar quantum ready team that you've seen be successful?
Okay. Quantum computing is based on linear algebra. So anyone with a numerate background, so engineering, mathematics, data science, computer science, physics, has the basic knowledge that they need to understand how to do this. Yes, there's lots of great fun physics involved, but you don't need to understand all the fun physics. You basically need an understanding, and you need to understand your problem domain. So if you're in material science, clearly you need to understand surface chemistry and the like. If you're in finance, quantitative finance, you need to understand those. But that anyone needs to understand their basic business problem. But those combinations and a willingness to learn, a willingness to experiment. We've had some really successful, and one of the things I've been really pleased about is the group of young people we've had that we've recruited over the last 5 years who are
congratulations,
superstars in this area, and some of those folks are absolutely great, and that pick a small team with that set of skills. You probably want somebody who knows and has the business connections within a large firm to actually be able to provide you with air cover and to make sure that you're managing all the stakeholders. But within that context, and you can look at folks like Phil Interlure at HSBC and what he's done, and, copy that sort of model.
We'll make sure we have him sitting here at the show and having some people share how
Cool.
they've properly gotten quantum ready. I always like allowing people out there to have the benefit that I get to be so lucky, which is to be in these people's energy and to get a little bit of advice of what's happened in their journey. What would you leave? You've recruited an incredible young and talented team, and you've inspired leaders and people to take this leap, this quantum leap of faith, and knowing that this is the change that is coming. What would you leave people with an advice that has helped you in your career and guide you through to get to here?
Always work on something that you care about. Right? Work on something you love, because if you do that, it's easy. If you get up and I don't really want to do that, it's hard. But I've got these 5 problems. The only question is, which one do I start on? Hey, it's really, really easy. And I was really lucky as a kid. At school,
Okay.
my physics teacher invited his old tutor from Cambridge to come and talk to us. It's a guy called Otto Frisch. He was one of the inventors of nuclear fission. And we were sitting on the floor with this guy on a chair, because he was a bit old by then, explaining how in the 1930s he and his aunt, Lise Meitner, had basically figured nuclear fission out. I was like, oh, okay.
And that was it for you.
And, as an inspiration, go find people who inspire you, go do stuff you love, and take risks occasionally, because, ultimately you have to go, well, that looks like the right thing to do. Okay. And so that's one of the things that I did in terms of, trying to get the telco industry quantum safe. We worked together with the leadership, the GSMA and various other, this matters. If you're successful, you get 10 years where you have to now go deliver it, but that's fine.
And now we have 10 years to hold you accountable. So
I've been working on it for 3 years, so you've got 7 years to hold me.
So you got 7 years to hold him accountable to staying to something he loves and watching other people fall in love with quantum. Zig, thank you so much for this sharing.
Not a problem.
This is certainly something I do in practice in my life. I love what I do. And thank you so much for letting me learn a little bit about this. And hopefully the bankers, fintechers, and leaders out there and regulators listen and learn that this is not so scary. And if nothing else, reach out to have some help. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And